going to go ahead and begin as a subcommittee of the Energy and Environment Committee. Today is August 19th. This is room 1010. Madam Clerk, don't call the roll because we're not established as a committee yet, but we'll go ahead and start as a subcommittee and start with our presentation on the Stormwater Master Plan. That would be item what?
Number 5.
Very good, Mr. Prieto. Let's go ahead and start there.
Item number 5 relates to presentation by the Department of Water and Power relative to the Stormwater Capture Master Plan.
Very good. If we can have staff come on up and begin their presentation, it'd be appreciated.
Where they go?
Uh-oh.
They stepped down.
They're not here yet. Thank you, Ms. Yancey. All right, well, then we will wait to begin. Trying to start on time here, boys and girls. Let's see.
Number 1?
Revisit.
That's substantive.
We have the sanitation people here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do items 6 and 7.
6 and 7?
No? Same people? I don't think so. Okay. All right. Mr. Prieto, why don't we go ahead and start with item 1. We'll hold items on the desk, and then we'll go ahead and, once we have a quorum, we'll go ahead and start action on items. Item number 1.
Item number 1, CAO report relative to request for authority to execute a third amendment to existing contract with Geo-Environment Technologies. We have staff from the CAO's office and Bureau of Sanitation.
Very good. Madam Clerk, we have a quorum. Mr. Blumenfield has entered the room. I'm on it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Wilson Poon with the CAO's office. Item 1 is a CAO report recommending council approval of the third amendment to the Bureau's contract with Geo-Environment Technologies for the continued operation of the tire project. This is the Terminal Island Renewable Energy Project, which is an alternative to land application of the city's biosolids and basically injects biosolids and digested sludge into deep, abandoned, or depleted wells. Through thermal treatment and biodegradation, the materials convert to methane gas and are recovered in adjacent wells. The third amendment extends the term for another 5 years and also increases the cost ceiling by $31 million. The third amendment also includes a more favorable fee structure for the city and includes $10 million for capital infrastructure costs. Sufficient funds are available from the Sewer Construction and Maintenance Fund, and our office is recommending council approval of the third amendment.
Very good. Department? Would you like to make a presentation?
No, we're just going to be available to answer questions.
Very good. Colleagues, do we have any questions for these fine people? Mr. Peretz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that NASA found that the LA Basin has 60% plus larger methane footprint than was originally thought. How often, if at all, do we test at Terminal Island for methane leaks?
Specifically for methane leaks, we do not do any testing, but we have monitors that we do for this particular project that we have there. So we're able to take samples and monitor the methane as it's being generated. So that's what we're doing on this particular project.
Are we finding a problem with more methane than we expected at that location?
We're actually hoping that we could get more methane. That's one of the reasons why we're asking for it to increase it, so we could inject more biosolids so that we could produce more methane than we are presently with the project.
But in terms of leaks?
We've not seen any leaks based upon the equipment that we have on site.
Very good.
So it's been a pilot now for about 10 years, is that right?
Almost 10.
Almost 10 years. Happy birthday. And are we getting close for it to being a viable energy option for us? I mean, how much more before we actually start using this or scaling it up?
Well, with this second permit that we have, we are scaling it up to 400 tons per day. Right now, we're averaging about 150. And so with the second permit, we were to scale it up to 400, and we've not met that target yet. And so that's one of the reasons why we're asking for the cost increase with the contract.
Very good. All right. Seeing no additional questions, we'll go ahead and move to approve the CAO's report requesting that the Bureau of Sanitation be authorized to execute the third amendment to the existing contract with Geo-Environment Technologies for the operation and maintenance of the TIRE project as specified, and I don't believe we have any cards on that, so that shall be the order without objection. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 2.
Number 2, Department of Water and Power and City Administrative Officer report relative to proposed lease and management agreement with the Los Angeles Incubator Incorporated for the Lacrette's Innovation Campus. Staff from Department of Water and Power and the CAO.
Ms. Sutley, always a pleasure. How are you today?
Oh, very good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. We have a very brief presentation. You can get it up on the screen. This is to go ahead with the lease between the Department of Water and Power and the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator, but I wanted to give you just a little bit of background on the Lacrette's Innovation Campus itself. So that is a rendering of the building. It's construction is almost complete. We're about over 90% complete in construction. This is at 5th and Hewitt in the Arts District. The Lacrette's campus will serve a number of different functions. We will be able to do some kind of high-tech customer engagement with our customers. The partnership and the co-location with the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator will allow us at DWP and the city as a whole to support our goals on research and development in clean technology. We will be able to learn a lot about the new kinds of technologies that will affect the utility industry going forward, and also, again, in partnership with Lacey and continue to work closely with them to help to ensure that we're promoting innovation and creating green jobs in the city of Los Angeles. So Lacey, as you may recall, is in fact the city's clean tech business incubator. It was started by the city and then spun off to help commercialize clean technology and to create jobs here in Los Angeles. In its few years of existence, has done quite well as an incubator, getting a lot of recognition around the world as well as in the U.S. And we have helped to raise a lot of money and also create a lot of economic impact here in Los Angeles, and working closely in partnership with DWP with the rest of the city, with the mayor's office and the council. And we, LADWP, while we will co-locate with them at the Lacrette's Innovation Campus, we're not providing any operational budgetary support on an annual basis, but we will be able to take advantage of the synergies of being co-located with a Cleantech Incubator. So this is some shots of the construction as of a few weeks ago, what it looks like inside, and we're hopeful to be done with this pretty soon. It's 96% complete and will be completed within budget. And the facilities in the Lacrette's Innovation Campus include a customer engagement lab, the Energy Efficiency and Emerging Tech Center, our Energy Efficiency Testing Lab, and LADWP Workspace. These are the facilities that DWP will have on its side of the building, and sharing the prototype manufacturing lab and the Workforce Training Center with the Cleantech Incubator. Of course, the Cleantech Incubator will have its space over there as well. So you have in front of you the lease that was approved by the Board of Water and Power Commissioners a couple of weeks ago. It's based on previous actions that were approved by both the Board of Water and Power Commissioners and the City Council in 2010. The terms of the lease, it's a 20-year lease with a 10-year renewal option, a rent of $1 a year, as we do with many nonprofits. And then if the incubator starts to generate a fair amount of revenue, we could see some revenue back to DWP. I wanted to call your attention to the first look. This is an important part of the arrangement with LACI, where we will have the ability to get a first look at the technologies that are being developed by the incubated companies, and that's a very valuable thing to us. And then just the last thing is, as I said, we're about 96% done with the construction, assuming the lease is approved by the City Council. Cleantech Incubator will be able to move in September, and LADWP will start to occupy its space in October, and then over the next few months develop the public spaces that will have exhibits and technology demonstration for the public. So that concludes my presentation.
Very good. I don't have very many questions. It's an exciting site. It's an old DWP asset. What was it before?
It was actually a warehouse that was used for a number of different things. It was built in the 1920s.
It's a gorgeous building.
It's a beautiful building. If you haven't had a chance to go over there, we're happy to take you over and take a look at it. We're sort of in the last phases of construction. It's starting to look like a real office space. It's pretty spectacular inside.
No, and the tenant improvements, I think, really fit the character of the building. It's a beautiful building. So
Absolutely.
Colleagues, if you all haven't been to LACI, in addition to the aesthetics, they're doing tremendous work there as an incubator. It's really very, very exciting. We should all want one in our districts. Let me ask you a question. You answered everything that I had wanted to ask. I'm just wondering, so where are the construction forces in all of this? Bureau of Engineering, Bureau of Contract Administration. Are those general fund investments, or are they rate base?
There is some, we paid for the acquisition of the site, the construction, and some of the construction, but there's a number of different funding sources. We were able to use the federal new market tax credits for parts of the construction. We've received some funding from the Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration. We were able to use the qualified energy conservation bonds, so we were able to put together a package of funding so that more than half of the construction costs are being paid for by entities other than DWP.
Yeah, no, the first look agreement, I think, is incredibly important too. Ideally, you'll get businesses that are inspired by the fact that they're co-locating with DWP and will do some innovation, bring innovation towards the department and some hopefully business to themselves. So it's very, very exciting. Colleagues, any questions? Mr. Blumenfield.
Yeah, just following up with the first look, the whole project's very exciting, and I'm excited about what's happening. And Lassie, in fact, is working with me on the U.S. Or the Los Angeles Israel Task Force, and they've been one of our stakeholders on that. The first look, though, I wanted to understand that better. So what do we get as a first look in terms of access to technology that's being developed? Is there a proprietary piece to it? Is there a discount piece to it? How does that work?
Well, it's a first look, so whatever technologies are being developed, we'll get the first, when they're ready for commercialization, we'll get the first chance to see if it's something that we would be interested in. So we are working, it is specified in the lease, John?
Yeah, the first look, it's also an agreement with LACI and the subtenants, the incubated companies. So in their agreements with their incubated companies, they're going to have a provision where the incubated companies are agreeing to give DWP a first look, and it's a first look at their technologies, programs that the incubated companies are working on at LaCretz, and it also gives us the opportunity to request early meetings with the executives of these incubated companies to discuss and figure out what they're working on and see if it's something that DWP may be interested in.
But it's not like, I always think of first look deals are more like a Hollywood term when you think about
Yeah.
You get the first look deal and you develop a project and then you get to develop it at a certain cost and nobody else does. With a technology, it's a little more complicated, so we get the first look deal, but some big corporation is asking to exclusively develop that technology in the private sector or wherever. Does that mean there cannot be that we would be able to use that technology? If it's developed here, we have a first look at it. They're creating an exclusive deal with somebody else. Does that first look ensure us not only being able to look at it, but to actually take advantage of it?
Well, I think we still have to follow for anything that we would acquire, any kinds of agreements we would enter into with the companies, still obviously follow the city's procurement requirements. But Fred Walty, the head of LACI, I think might be able to shed a little more light on this as well.
Hello. Look, the first look provision of this is incredibly important for both sides. The companies are here at LACI partly to get access to and have the opportunity to demonstrate their technologies with LADWP, and most of the energy companies, all of the energy companies want to do business with LADWP. All the water companies want to do business with LADWP. What we are going to do is we're going to set up a process by which the engineers at LADWP that are the appropriate for this sector and our companies, we think of it as a showcase every month where we're going to get the new companies in, they're going to showcase what, and those engineers are going to do a couple things. They're going to, first of all, do a critique of here's what you need to do to work with us. Here's what the good, the bad. And then secondly, point them in the right direction on how to engage with DWP. So I think in the practical level, what's going to happen is LADWP is going to have a much earlier start in this than anybody else because they're going to actually see and work, with the companies.
And I just, that sounds like a little bit of a detail, but the two spaces are actually connected, so that we will have our technology people over there, our energy efficiency, emerging technology folks over there. So they will be working sort of elbow to elbow with the incubated companies. So we think this is very promising, very exciting, and I think we're off to a good start with Lacey.
It's a tremendous advantage for those companies.
Absolutely.
I mean, in a way, and that's not a bad thing because we're trying to develop companies in LA. I'm not saying it. There's a lot bigger advantage for them in some ways than it is for the DWP side of it.
Well,
I think both, because things are changing very rapidly in the utility industry. The technology is developing very quickly. The way that we use information and all of those things are happening very quickly, and they're happening much more quickly in the incubated companies, and we'll really have the advantage to see that technology as it's being developed, which is difficult to do sort of in-house.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Farrell. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So along the same lines, as far as new technologies, might there be patent sharing opportunities, should that need arise, that could further protect, or not protect, but enhance the city's?
We can take advantage of patents if we go through licensing agreements with these companies. That's the normal way of doing it. Once we have it, LADWP, has an economic interest in these companies, then we can certainly do a licensing agreement with them. But by and large, patents are owned by the startups themselves, and that's a key part of their strategy and their value.
I think the other, again, sort of the advantage of the first look is that we can see those technologies. We can decide for ourselves which are the most promising and not have to be joined at the hip unless it makes sense for DWP and for the city to do that.
So there will be opportunities to more or less take ownership of technologies that are of particular benefit to Los Angeles.
There may be some technologies where it is in the department's interest and the city's interest to be very involved in that way with the companies. But as those technologies develop and with the close, but not only the physical proximity, but the regular interaction and the ability to have the first look, we can design those arrangements as they make sense.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also a big fan of the Cleantech Incubator, and I think it's been wonderful watching all these small tech companies getting up and running. Especially there's one we followed a little bit called Pick My Solar, which has been winning some awards, and it's all very exciting. I just have one question. Since this is a Cleantech Incubator, how closely are we defining clean tech? Because, as an example, if you look at the whole lifestyle of projects, natural gas, for instance, burns pretty clean, but it has a problem with methane leaks in the production, and which, of course, is more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, and also has a problem with groundwater contamination. So are we looking very tightly at the companies that we include as, quote, clean tech companies?
Well, Council Member, two things. One, up until this date, we haven't spent a lot of time in defining what clean tech is because we've been really looking for the best companies no matter what they are in terms of clean tech. So that's why we have companies in water, we have companies in ag business, we have material science, and energy companies. And we don't have any companies at this stage of the game in natural gas. where natural gas fits in the strategy for sustainable energy is a often debated topic of which I'm not going to jump in here, but I can say that it is, we believe it can be a positive contribution, and we would look at any company that comes to us in that, and we would look at it as just the way we would look at the criteria for any of these companies, and we look at them as if we were making an investment for them. Is the technology breakthrough? Is the management team able to get it to the next level? Do they have enough money to get to the next level? Those kinds of things. But at this stage of the game, we do not have any companies that are in the natural gas arena. It would, in our estimation, be a sustainable technology if it came in this direction. Once again, I believe our mission, broadly speaking, is to build a huge green economy for Los Angeles. That's kind of what I believe, and that's part of it in my definition.
And we'll be very interested in sort of whatever the technologies developed there are, but the kinds of DWP staff who will be there we will have our energy efficiency and emerging technologies engineers over there, so we will be particularly interested in those kinds of technologies moving forward.
Very good. Okay. Colleagues, no additional questions? We do have one speaker card. Let's go ahead and call up Wayne. Wayne going twice.
It's right there.
Wayne going 3 times. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that item out. So, seeing no objection, we'll go ahead and approve the DWP's request for authority to execute a lease and management agreement for LACI 501c3. No objection. That's the order. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good. We're going to go ahead and take item number 8 out of order so we can accommodate some staff time. If we can get 8 to come up, please.
Item number 8, motion bonding Koretz, West, and Kokorian Huizar relative to hiring, retaining expert in petroleum and natural gas engineering. Provide technical advice to the council. We have staff from the CLA and the CAO.
All right. Good afternoon. Matthias Farfan for the Office of the CLA.
Alvin Newman from the CAO's office.
Okay, and we're here to discuss the motion as read by staff to have the CLA hire or retain a credible petroleum expert to review various issues. This motion's also been referred to Plum and Rules, and so as we make our way through, we're hoping to get some feedback from council members as far as what they perceive this expert, what type of work that they should be working on, and what the report should include. At a high level, we do plan on then preparing an RFQ if ultimately council instructs us to do this. And we would then ask the CAO, planning, and transportation to assist us with the preparation of that RFP, since they're involved with these issues and, by admin code in charge of these various areas. With the report at the end of the day, including a general background on these issues as far as oil production and gas production around the city and how it's moved around the city. Perhaps looking at best practices when it comes to these types of operations. Also looking at federal, state, regional regulation where it comes to this industry and what our local laws, what is allowed for local governments to regulate in this area. Other than that, if you have any questions, there are staff here from various departments that could provide more detail.
Very good. Let's go ahead and have the planning department come up. Is the planning department here?
Yes.
Very good. So this is an interesting request because, as you mentioned, the CAO technically has the jurisdiction over petroleum administration, but the planning department made the recommendation. So I wanted to ask the planning department to help us discuss some of the key findings in your report that asks for us hiring this expert and help us understand what it is that this technical consultant from a planning perspective would be doing for us and where.
Well, I think the main point of that technical consultant is to help our zoning administrators understand the magnitudes of these conditional use permits that they're granting. We only have land use criteria that we use, and I think a lot of these issues have sort of risen into areas where our zoning administrators and other decision makers are really not that informed. So I think they could provide guidance and some kind of, report back process so that we can have better decisions and better.
So I mean, would the idea be that you would, I think there's a couple of ways of doing this, right? You could have a consultant on staff, which would mean technically you'd have somebody on board all the time to weigh in, or you could, through the Recode LA process, look at areas that have this land use potential and come up with some protocols for how it is to deal with these types of land uses. I mean, what is it that you all are envisioning? It seems like you're asking just for a one-time consultant. Would it be more the latter to have us do a filter on the city of Los Angeles, understand where there's a potential for this use, and come up with protocols?
Yeah, I think that's. I think we don't have all the answers right now, but we do have these very large oil districts that cover main parts of most of the city. And I think that we could have development standards where a lot of these oil facilities can go in by right, and where we get the conditional use permit. So we could have some standard protocols that go into the oil districts, and then in the M3 zones where we can grant conditional use permits, we could have a more holistic approach to those.
Now, the CAO's petroleum administration duties under the administration code, do they conflict with this idea of getting a technical expert? Because I hate to sound bureaucratic, but it seems to me that the CAO largely deals with the financial transaction aspects of this type of use, not so much with the land use, at least from when I read sort of what the administration code says the CAO is supposed to do with respect to this use. Do you see a conflict between the two?
I'm not aware of any. I could go check, but I'm not aware of any when we drafted this report several months ago.
Okay. And have we ever hired a consultant to look at anything in this area before?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And if we proceed to do this, do you have any sense as to what the anticipated costs could be?
I don't have that information with me today.
I guess we'd have to sort of develop the scope of work, which is going to be a recommendation that I have so that we can move this forward and figure out how to provide the technical assistance to the department. Colleagues, any questions? Mr. Koretz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for scheduling this item. As was mentioned, the city sits on one of the largest and oldest urban oil fields in the country. And given the different new climate change rules and regulations and EPA rules on coal plants and the president's new methane emissions effort, I think, and many other things, I think it's essential for us to have someone in the city family, presumably in the CLA's office, who's an expert in these matters. Now, the city's administrative code suggests it should be otherwise, but the current position in the CAO's office, to my knowledge, mostly focused on financial matters, could also deal with permitting and procedures, but what it doesn't seem to be about at all is looking at human health consequences and environmental impacts. We have people getting sick from oil and gas operations in their neighborhoods, and I think we need to get a handle on that. So I don't know, am I wrong? Has the CAO's office ever taken any kind of a protective action in response to the problems we've had in the city?
Alvin Newman, CAO's office again. It's my understanding that our approach has traditionally been from budgeting and administrative support. We're generalists in general in our field, and from my reading of the administrative code, it seems as if we're reporting on with respect to petroleum leases. And that doesn't mean like the expertise and the academic skills that are needed to carry out the management of those petroleum leases. And so since I've been in the office for the years that I've been there, there hasn't been the in-house expertise. But when we are reporting for benefit of the council and the mayor, then we prepare the report based on the information that we can gather. So in-house expertise, I don't think we have had in the past. I could be wrong on this, but we are responsible for reporting on the petroleum leases, and that's where the management of the function was.
And obviously, I think there should be someone in a position of looking for more than just the financial issues, but also looking at our health and environmental issues, and one that not only has the expertise, but also has independence from the oil and gas industry, which is not necessarily easy because most of the folks that have the expertise work for those industries. But perhaps we can find an academic with some background in the field and an expert in environmental science and public health and with a focus on California and on these issues. Do we know if anyone else, anywhere else in the country has that kind of a staff person on staff currently?
I'm not aware of any.
How long do we think this kind of search would take, and how difficult do you think it would be to find the type of person that I've described?
We would have to do an outreach process. Several months. I don't know.
Thank you.
Mr. Blumenfield, but as you present, I want to sort of make sure that we're saying what it is that we want here, because the motion suggests that the CLA hire an expert, and so if we do that, then I think we should give them the position authority to recommend to us. But the planning department makes a recommendation that asks for an expert to help with the land use and zoning regulations that are related to these land uses. And so to me, that's sort of where we're going. So I think we just want to be clear on what it is that we're asking for. I'm following really what the report is saying. We're talking about health impacts. I think those are two different things potentially. Because, Mr. Koretz, it sounds like you're asking for ongoing staffing for the CLA. I think the recommendation from the planning department is to have a consultant advise us and then go away. So I just want to get a sense for if that's my correct interpretation of what the recommendation was from the planning department.
Yes, so it would be to advise our decision makers on the proper conditions for these new facilities or derricks or whatever oil refinery processing is going on. We would look forward to the specifics that come out of whatever this expert could advise us to do to mitigate any impacts to the neighborhoods.
Right, but
so
it's more of a one-time shot. It's not. It sounds, Mr. Koretz, as if you want somebody who's there full-time. Is that what we want?
Well,
if it is, then we should figure out how to give the position authority to the legislative analyst and have them advise us, but I don't think it negates the need that the planning department has.
Now, I think we might be talking about two separate things, both of which are necessary. I don't know whether they have to be full-time, whether they could do it on a consulting basis, but the person I've envisioned would be doing this on an ongoing basis, particularly as problems come up.
Okay. Mr. Blumenfield?
Yeah, my question is more of a confusion. I'm not sure what we're actually acting on in terms of, are we doing position authority? Is this, and then usually that goes through the FSR or through the budget process. Is it a contract, in which case it usually comes as a contract? I'm not debating the need. I mean, I get the need. I'm not understanding what's being asked of us as a council to be voting on, and what is the scope of the work that, if it's a discrete amount of work or a contract, then should we be looking at a contract? And if it's a position, should we be looking at a position? And if not, what are we looking at, and what am I being asked to vote on?
So the recommendation that I will make, and we can jump off from there, is that the CLA, the CAO, the Department of City Planning, Engineering, Transportation, and other relevant departments help develop a scope of work for this petroleum and natural gas technical consultant, and have that scope of work not come back here so we can keep moving and not waste any time, go to the Plum Committee and help us understand what that scope looks like. Because my thinking is that we are following the recommendations asked for in the planning department's report, which is asking for somebody to help them look at the land use regulatory environment so that we have the ability to enforce and affect CUPs and all of the stuff that we would, I think, on the front end will help mitigate issues that pertain to health or anything else. I wouldn't be supportive of hiring somebody permanently unless we went to Budget and Finance and did that process. But to me, here's a one-time way to address immediately what the planning department is lacking in terms of expertise, so that we can potentially contemplate maybe we need a technical person on staff somewhere else to advise the council. But I think the folks that need the expertise right now is the planning department.
Would a contract come back to us once they figure out?
So my hope is
that
that if it does, I think we spend a lot of time on this. So I think if you all trusted the Plum Committee to take the next step after the scope of work is developed, then at some point, I don't think it's been referred past Plum to anybody else.
Rules Committee.
To Rules Committee. So there's plenty of looks from many of us to make sure that it's moving and that the scope is adequate to the immediate needs for the planning department.
I think
Now it is confusing because the CAO right now, per the administration code, is where this would normally be housed. If we had a permanent person for my read, the motion asks for the CLA to hire somebody, and the planning department is asking for technical help. So hopefully in this scope of work, all of the people that I mentioned, including the people who are actually with shovels touching potentially these issues, can collaborate and figure out where the best place is to house somebody, if not temporarily at the planning department. Mr. Kretz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is also generated as a result of previous legislative requests and being told, well, we can't really do this because we don't have the expertise in-house to do it. So, and that just our financial people wouldn't be adequate to respond. So while there is a need in the planning department, I think the need could be a little bit broader, and it could be on an ongoing basis. So if we could attempt to address that through the same process.
I think if we can get these folks to sort of discuss that, because I'm not a planner, and so help me here if I'm incorrect, but as we move forward, if we have any shot or of addressing concerns, we have to develop findings that have to be consistent with the regulatory thresholds that presumably this technical expert can give the department. So for me, it's belt and suspenders. We need to, I understand the desire to have somebody in the CLA's office, and with all due respect to the CLA's office, I need to make sure that the planning department gets the reports and findings correct so we can stop or move or address things. And I think that's, to me, the immediate thing and what I'm willing to support today. But as they collaborate, they may come back and say, no, the right place is in the zoo or wherever they say, and then I will defer to the expertise of all of these city departments. But so as not to let this languish, we should, I think, give them the task of coming up with the scope of service and ask them to collaborate and figure out the best scheme for this effort, and have the Planning and Land Use Committee, which I think initiated most of this, weigh in, and then rules, and then we'll figure out where we're at in the process. But I don't, to answer your question, Mr. Bloomfield, to have it come back, I think we'll spend more time than we want to. Mr. Cedillo?
I like the fact that you want to keep moving this process forward, and Plum would look to be one area in which we could reevaluate it. But it seems to me that we're trying to define process without figuring out need, and that we should focus on need, and that the directive should be towards what our needs are. So I don't know if planning needs it, or building and safety, or fire, or all three of them need one, or the CLA needs one. And so we need to get a report back that tells us what our need is. This seems to be a major concern for the city, with incredible challenges that have confronted, I know, my district, other districts, and so that we may, at the beginning, want to be a little more flexible, a little more open-ended, and not as prescriptive as saying we need one person for this place, but actually tell us what our needs are, and let's figure out then how we staff, so that then we can figure out, are we doing a contract or are we doing a permanent employee,
Well, I'm just going to interrupt you, Mr. City. That presents a little bit of a rub because the action that we're trying to take speaks to the motion by Mr. Koretz and others that asked for the ability to hire somebody. And so, I think what I'm suggesting that we do is we task all the folks that you mentioned and the ones that I mentioned to develop the scope of work that reflects the need, and then at the Planning and Land Use Committee, let us know what they've come up with. Now, we could have it come back to this committee and we can vet it some more, but you and I have the benefit of being on the Planning and Land Use Committee, so
I'll see you there.
as shepherds of this, we can amend and tweak it some more, and then the Rules Committee has the opportunity. But I don't know if, Mr. O'Farrell, you've got any thoughts on sort of how to proceed. But
I think you've laid out a pretty straightforward process that will get us to any next necessary steps.
develop the scope, the need, and then we'll figure out who and where with the recommendations of staff. And if that's okay with everybody, we will.
All I would do is underline need.
Okay.
Because I also looked at the same
Underscore
motion.
need, staff. You got that? All right.
I looked at the same motion as
Hashtag underscore, that's right. All right, so let's go ahead and thank you very much for your presentation. Let's take public comment. We have Dr. Tom Williams, Wayne, and Brett Shears. Mr. Williams, come on up. 1 minute for all of the speakers. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and adhere to Rule 7, where we will cumulatively allow people 5 minutes for the different items, and there will be an opportunity for public comment. So you, sir, have 1 minute.
Okay. Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council representative, but also member of the American Petroleum Association, Society of Petroleum Engineers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have an opportunity here, primarily through the land use aspects. You have an oil and gas code already. It needs to be severely amended. An example of it is what we've dealt with for the last 8 years in the Baldwin Hills. We got a county community standards district formed, and it's been working for now 8 years. Not so good in some things, better in others. So we're available. If you need assistance, hey, I've done it real time 60 years ago, almost lost some fingers. So you have ability.
Thank you very much. Wayne?
No. You should hire this guy. You know, he can do it. But also there's something called TASA. Go online and Google TASA, and you can hire experts anytime on 250, 300 different subjects. They cover oil and gas. But today, oil closed at $40 a barrel. It's projected to go down to $25 a barrel. So this is not a good time to try to be pumping stuff out of the ground like you're thinking, because you think you're going to start fracking and drilling for oil and it's going to balance the budget. So this is the time to leave all of it in the ground, because it's going to be a pissing match to the bottom for the next 3-4 years because of China's economy. So see, I just gave you $100,000 worth of consulting advice right there, see? So you have all of the experts you need. Use these people, they're here.
Mr. Shears.
Hi, my name is Brett Shears. I'm from the North Area Neighborhood Development Council. That's the area that represents USC. There I serve as chair of the policy committee, where we deal with the kind of issues that we're talking about today in terms of oil and gas. And in fact, there are 2 active oil wells in our area, and we have the commensurate adverse quality of life outcomes that come with that. Last night, our committee, this policy committee, passed a resolution imploring our 3 city council representatives to amend the land use code to either curb or prohibit the kind of oil drilling that we see in our area. I am under no illusions about the current political and legal climate we live in and how that makes this idea unlikely. However, hiring an expert on this issue can move us towards this noble goal, which I know many on this council think is. And we should really support more. I don't think this is enough. Having the petroleum administrator would also be a good thing. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. So what we'll do is go ahead and instruct the CLA, the CAO, the Department of City Planning, the Bureau of Engineering, the Department of Transportation, and any other relevant departments to identify the needs of all of the city agencies in the city of Los Angeles when they deal with petroleum and natural gas issues, and then develop a scope of work for the natural and gas technical consultant. And we'll have them do that and report to the Planning and Land Use Committee. Without objection, that it shall be the order. Mr. Prieto, that takes us back to item number what now?
Number 3,
Sounds good to me. Item number 3.
DWP and CAO report, relative proposed amendment number 4 to an existing agreement with E-Loyalty. You have staff from Department of Water and Power and the CAO.
Matt Lamp, Chief Information Officer, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. What you have before you is a contract amendment with a company called E-Loyalty, who has been our system integrator for the interactive voice response system for the department. We want to extend this contract, particularly at this time, as we are due for a hardware refresh, software upgrade that is necessary to maintain our compliance with the credit card industry standards. And we need to proceed with that this fall in order to achieve compliance to their new version of standards by the end of December this year. Our intent is to then issue an RFP for a future support vendor for the IVR system, and at that point look at some more extensive reprogramming of that system. But at this point, we're really looking for this amendment to give us the support we need to do the upgrade and the technical upgrade for compliance, and then the support during the period until we can complete the RFP process for a future vendor.
Very good. Colleagues, do you have any questions for the department or RCAO? Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned earlier, I'm concerned about methane leaks and groundwater contamination during the extraction process for natural gas, and especially since this comes from Kern, I presume much of this gas comes from fracking operations.
Mr. Koretz, this is item number 3 that deals with the E-Loyalty contract. The department is asking for additional authority for a software patch, and then they're going to come back with an RFQ process down the road, it sounds like.
Okay, maybe I'm reading this wrong.
Okay, so this is item number 3. I think you were trying to address item number 4.
Item number 4.
So any additional comments or questions, colleagues? Hearing and seeing none, we'll go ahead and approve the department's request for authority to execute Amendment 4 to the existing agreement with E-Loyalty on the ongoing system maintenance support software hardware upgrades for the customer contact center system as specified. Hearing and seeing no objection, that shall be the order. Item number 4.
Thank you. Number 4. Department of Water and Power and CAO reports relative to proposed execution of binding request and agreement with Kern River Gas Transmission Company.
Oh, my apologies. I did not take a public comment on item number 3. Wayne, going once. There he is. Wayne, come on up.
So, move to reconsider the vote. don't you?
We won't, we didn't record a vote just yet. We'll take public comment and then we'll.
But,
yeah,
okay. Yes, I think Councilman Koretz's question on item 3 was very good, relating Kern River gas transmission into
Wayne,
E. Well,
you need to address item
well,
number,
yeah, I'm addressing.
item number 3 deals
right,
with the
because
E-Loyalty request to extend the department. So if you could limit your comments to item number 3, it'd be much
it relates to the DWP. Kern County to the eLoyalty LLC contract.
This item has to do with the e-loyalty contract that the department is asking for an
Yeah,
extension.
I'm just trying to follow his lead. Okay, so, this, well, anyway, this is...
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell. He is being disruptive. That'll be your first warning. So, Mr. Wayne...
Okay, we'll talk like babies.
The Board of Water and Power Commissioners, they always lie. E-loyalty should not be extended. And I know I'm talking to 5 babies. So how much is it going to cost? And did you take RFPs with competitors? You didn't answer those questions at the meeting.
Very good. So the order I previously read is passed without objection. Item number 4.
Number 4, CAO DWP report shall propose execution of binding request and agreement with Kern River Gas Transmission Company.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Fuente and committee members. My name is Min Lei, Director of Power and Fuel Purchase. What we have before you is what we're here to ask for your approval to advance this item to City Council. It's a natural gas transmission service agreement for a period starting in October 1, 2016 to September 30th, 2031. It's a 15-year contract. What you have on the map there is the Kern River pipeline starting from southwest of Wyoming, going all the way south to Southern California. It's a 700 miles transmission line, and the department consume about 85% of our gas, take about 85% of our gas through that line, and the line began service in 1992 when we have been a customer of that line all that time. Because of that, we became a vintage shipper. This agreement here gives us a significant discount, 50%, just about 50% there, saving us about $7.4 million a year over a period of 15 years. And we're here to ask for your approval to advance this item to City Council.
Very good. Let me ask you a couple of questions here. How much natural gas are we currently transporting through this source?
I'm going to have Bill Engels answer that question.
My name is Bill Engels. I'm the fuel manager for Water and Power. We get about 85% of our gas coming down the Kern River pipeline, and we get 60 billion cubic feet of gas a year. So something on the order of 45 to 50 billion cubic feet of gas.
So you said 65%?
85% of our gas needs, yes.
85% of the city's...
Of the city, of Water and Power's gas needs for power generation.
Flows through there?
Yes.
Very good. And how much are we currently transporting through there? Is it the full 85%?
That amount, yes.
Okay, very good. And is there any way to get similar contract cost savings anywhere else? Because that is with the remaining 15%? So, where does the 15% come from of our natural gas?
The 15%, go ahead, Bill.
Okay. We also obtain gas on the El Paso pipeline, also on the Mojave pipeline.
Very
but
good.
The majority of it coming from the Kern River pipeline.
And what's the current status of the Apex Power project? We procured it last year, right?
We purchased it I think it started running in March of 2014, so it's now been about 19 months that it's been in operation, and it's been extensively used for power generation for LA.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Mr. Koretz.
Well, I'll try to re-ask the question I was asking under the wrong item. Am I safe to presume that much of this natural gas comes from fracking operations?
Currently, we're not doing any fracking in the Pinedale Reserves area, and there's no plan to do any more fracking at this point on.
That's on the Department of Water and Power's Pinedale gas reserves.
Right. So this project is not using fracking anywhere along the way.
This pipeline transports gas from the Southwest Wyoming area to Southern California, and there is something like 50% of the gas in this country is now fracked, and so chances are very high that there is fracked gas that's going to come down this pipeline. Yes.
So did you not just both tell me conflicting things, which is correct?
Well, what Min was referring to had to do with the Pinedale gas reserves that the department is is a part owner in. And we reported to the commission last year that there are no ongoing fracking activities on those reserves. And so we get something like 15% of our gas from those reserves, but there's currently no new oil, development going on those reserves at this point in time.
So do we do anything to limit leaks during the extraction process or along the pipeline as it transmits to Los Angeles?
Our contract operator named Ultra Resources at the Pinedale is supposed to be one of the best operators that we're aware of operating in that area. As far as us actually being part of their efforts to reduce methane emissions at the wellhead, we're not involved in that.
And how about along the pipeline?
The Kern River Pipeline is one of the newer, best constructed pipelines in America. And so we can only assume that of the fleet of pipelines in the country that it probably has less methane emissions than most other pipelines in the country. I think most methane emissions occur at the wellhead and not along the pipeline itself.
And we think at the wellhead we're not having any significant leaks.
We're not aware of any significant problems with methane emissions at the wellhead. Those kind of things are monitored by the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality and also by the Wyoming Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. And they've issued reports that everything is in compliance at the gas reserve.
Okay. Any additional questions, colleagues? Mr. Blumenfield?
Besides the reserves, what other gas is being put in that pipeline?
Well, as I stated earlier, we get like 15% of our gas from the gas reserves, and we have 85% of the gas for our needs come down the pipeline. That remaining 70% would be bought from independent suppliers in that area, in the Pinedale area.
In the Pinedale area?
Yes, in Southwest Wyoming area.
And brought that. And pipeline uses, is it just supplying us or is it also supplying others?
I think the gas that we send down the line is something like 15% of the total amount that comes to Southern California.
So 85% of the gas coming down is not even going to DWP?
It goes to other gas customers in Southern California.
Right. And the gas that's going down, is it, as you're saying, 85% from the reserves, or it's all sorts of, just the ones that we're getting? I guess you can't really distinguish which.
Could you restate your question, please?
I think I answered it as I'm stating it. I mean, you can't. You can't distinguish what which gas you're getting. It's a commodity. So, but you're saying 85% of the gas that goes down that pipeline
goes to customers other than water and power.
Goes to other customers.
That's right.
And is also a good chunk of it is 50% is coming from sources other than the reserves that we're buying on the market and shipping gas.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. We have one card. Mr. Spindler?
Well, as you see, Councilman Koretz, everything they say from the DWP is lies and obfuscation. They frack for all that oil. And with the utility prices falling as they are, natural gas is going to be a lot cheaper. By the time they put this thing in production, your retention costs and your write-down costs are going to far exceed the savings. Your requests do not include impact statements for projected utility costs for natural gas on the open market, which you could buy from Sempra. I'm also a Southern California Edison customer away from away from this mafia in unincorporated LA County, and we're receiving a 17% discount because they're able to buy the gas cheaper to run these power production plants. So this is the only utility that raises my rates to build a pipeline to give other utilities gas. Disgusting and sick.
Colleagues, the recommendation would be to approve the department's request for authority to execute the binding request and agreement for period 2 firm transportation service with Kern River as specified. Any objections?
No objections.
Hearing and seeing none, that shall be the order. Item number 5.
Number 5. Presentation by Department of Water and Power relative to their Stormwater Capture Master Plan. We have staff from Department of Water and Power.
Good afternoon and welcome, County of Los Angeles.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Fuentes, committee members. I'm David Petticoat. I'm the Director of Water Resources for LA Water and Power. With me is Andy Nicknaff. Andy is the manager of our Watershed Management Group, and his group is responsible for the development and implementation of the Stormwater Capture Master Plan that we'll be presenting to you today. Also with us today from LA County Flood Control District are Ken Zimmer. Ken is the head of the Water Conservation and Planning Division, and with Ken today is Alma Fuentes, and she is the unit lead for the Water Conservation and Planning Group. So the first item we're going to be discussing here is item number 5. This is the Stormwater Capture Master Plan, and then we'll address items 6 and 7 following your questions on this item. On this slide, you can see our partners on this master plan were the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, who funded 50% of the development of the master plan. LA County Flood Control District, of course, the Tree People, LA Sanitation, and our consultant Geocentech. And the master plan is designed to be one of the approaches that we're pursuing as part of the city's goal to reduce its dependence upon purchased imported water in response to the mayor's executive directive and also the city's sustainability plan. This chart tells the story of stormwater capture in Los Angeles dating back to the late 1960s and shows that through centralized means, we've captured and infiltrated over 1.2 million acre feet of stormwater over the past 50 or so years, and you can see that cumulative total in the red line on this chart. However, also as you can see, precipitation comes in waves, and therefore the key to stormwater capture is having adequate capture capacity to take advantage of these peaks. And as our built capture capacity increases, our ability to capture and beneficially use stormwater also increases. If rainfall were consistent and evenly distributed throughout the year, then a relatively modest capture capacity could probably be sufficient. But as you can see in the city, we have these huge storms. And in fact, about 80% of the rainfall annually occurs in about 9 to 15 days in the city of Los Angeles. So to effectively capture stormwater, the city has to continually increase its capture capacity, and the Stormwater Capture Master Plan is designed to do just that. Next slide. So in simple terms, the Stormwater Capture Master Plan is the roadmap that will guide implementation of LADWP's stormwater program over the next 20 years. So the plan contents include identification of the potential for stormwater capture as a local water resource, development of a portfolio of potential projects, programs and policies for possible implementation, prioritization of projects based on water supply benefits to the city, an economic analysis methodology to allow each project's costs and benefits to be compared to the alternative of purchasing imported water, and near-term and long-term project development milestones, and finally identification of potential project partners. This slide shows where we are right now and the bookends of where we can go with stormwater capture with a conservative and an aggressive approach to implementation over the next 20 years. So on the left you see our current baseline of stormwater capture from centralized projects in the dark blue and incidental recharge and distributed projects in the dark green. So right now during an average year, the city captures about 64,000 acre feet of stormwater. So the master plan contains a pathway forward to, in effect, either double or triple that amount of stormwater capture in the city as shown in the middle and on the right-hand graphic. So the light blue in the middle there above the dashed line are the centralized projects, and the light green are the distributed capture projects. So in effect, a pretty even split between centralized and distributed capture volume going forward, and a doubling to a tripling of the built capacity to capture stormwater in the city. So stormwater capture projects, they do have multiple benefits, some of which are shown on this slide. And while water supply benefits will be the basis of our staff recommendations, there are multiple benefits inherent in most, if not all, stormwater capture projects. One benefit that we did attempt to model and quantify in the plan were the water quality benefits in local rivers and streams. But these other benefits shown here, they weren't specifically modeled in the plan, but we're going to be attempting to quantify them on a case-by-case basis as projects individually come to our board for approval. Shown here is a flow chart depicting the process we use to choose and prioritize the project's programs and policies contained in the plan. The outcome of this process was a listing of 40 prioritized centralized capture projects and various distributed capture programs. So to accomplish this, we looked at factors like soil characteristics, land use, water rights, potential capture volumes, economic value, which I'll discuss in the next couple of slides, and potential partnerships and grant funding. This slide shows the range of costs per acre foot of water for various types of projects and programs identified in our Stormwater Capture Master Plan. From the most expensive type of projects at the top, and these are the on-site direct use type projects like rain barrels and cisterns, to the least expensive projects at the bottom, and these are the large centralized capture projects like Hansen Spreading Ground Improvement Project, which I'll show to you on a later slide. The vertical black line that you see in the middle of each bar is the median cost, and so you can see that there's a pretty wide range of costs for stormwater capture projects that can far exceed the cost of imported purchased water. And the takeaway here is that in general, stormwater projects are going to require LADWP to find funding partners to bear a share of the costs or to find grant funding to reduce projects' costs. We are looking for projects where LADWP's cost share will be on the order of $1,100 to $1,500 an acre foot, and I'll explain why that is on the next slide. But as you can see from this slide, there are projects that we could do on our own, but the vast majority of projects are going to require us to find funding partners. This slide summarizes the master plan's analysis of the value of local stormwater capture based on the avoided cost of MWD purchased water, plus the value of having local supplies as opposed to importing water from hundreds of miles away. And from this analysis, if a project is recharging our aquifer with stormwater, we determined that the net present value of that water is $1,100 an acre foot. What this means is that LADWP can justify contributing up to $1,100 an acre foot for stormwater recharge projects. The higher $1,550 value you see here is for stormwater projects that offset potable uses. The reason for the higher value is that potable water is treated and therefore has a higher value than untreated water. So based on these two values, we'll complete a project-by-project basis financial analysis on each project, program, and policy that we bring for consideration and approval. And this is going to be similar to what we've been doing on past stormwater projects that have been approved. And this financial analysis of each project will also be provided to the ratepayer advocate prior to the project coming to our board for approval. The next two slides are projects that were approved by LADWP's board. The first is a centralized stormwater project, and the following slide will be a distributed project. What you see here is a picture of the Hansen Spreading Grounds Improvement Project, which widened, deepened, and combined 20 existing spreading basins into 6 larger basins, replaced some radial gates with a new rubber dam diversion system, and added a telemetry system for remote control operation. The project was a partnership with LA County Flood Control District, and as a result, storage capacity in this facility increased from 279 acre feet to 1,460 acre feet, and the result was an average year stormwater capture and recharge capacity increase from 13,900 acre feet up to 16,000 acre feet. This is an example of a distributed capture project. It's the Laurel Canyon Green Street project in Pocoyma, which we broke ground on Thursday, August 6th. And as you can see, Chair Fuentes helped us break ground on this project. He's in the bottom left, in the very middle, behind the young man there he's helping. And this is a multi-beneficial stormwater capture project consisting of a series of vegetated swales that infiltrate water, along with a subterranean dry well system for groundwater infiltration. This project's along the northeast side of Laurel Canyon Boulevard between Terabella and Cagle Canyon in Pocoyma. So the project was a partnership between LADWP and LA Sanitation, and also the State Water Resources Control Board. And a total of $2 million of the project funding did come from the State Board through a Prop 84 stormwater grant. So the project also has multiple benefits, including opportunities for educational outreach through partnerships with Pocoyma Middle School, groundwater recharge of 40 acre feet a year, and that's about 13 million gallons or enough water to serve about 120 single-family homes. Improved water quality to the LA River, reduced local flooding, improved pedestrian access near a local school, some enhanced open space, and improved neighborhood aesthetics.
One other mutual benefit that you forgot to mention is that Sanitation is contracting with the Los Angeles Conservation Corps, working with at-risk youth to do a lot of this project. So win-win-win.
Very good point. Thank you. In closing, the Stormwater Capture Master Plan is now complete, and you can download a copy of the executive summary on our website shown here. It's ladwp.com/stormwater. And the next steps are that we're going to start bringing before the LADWP board for approval and implementation projects, programs, and policies identified in the master plan. Finally, I'd like to point out that we did receive national recognition for the development of the Stormwater Capture Master Plan. The American Academy of Environmental Engineers and Scientists awarded the master plan with their 2015 grand prize for excellence in environmental engineering and science. Also, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave the master plan their 2015 Outstanding Water Project of the Year award. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So thank you for all of the good work. I remember vividly when we first took office, attending at the River Center one of the planning hearings, and they were really well run, and you had, I think, tremendous input. This project has been going on for 2.5, 3 years?
About 2 years, yes.
So we now effectively have got a catalog of projects, decentralized, centralized, distributive, a catalog of projects to pick from. So what are the next steps? Because you mentioned the financial analysis. I think, no good deed goes unpunished here. You did a great job on this. How do we begin to bring some of these projects online, and how do we determine which ones we're going to fund first? I mean, what is sort of the back of the envelope thinking right now?
Well, we want to start with the most economic projects. So we want to try to move to our board the ones that are the lowest hanging fruit. And we've been doing that for a while, but this plan has really helped us see what the next tranche of projects that really should be moved forward are. A lot of these projects we look for funding partners and also partners who can help us implement the projects. So the ones where we find partners or find grant funding, find partners who are willing to commit financially, those projects will move up on the priority list, but we want to start moving on those lowest hanging fruit projects that have the least cost for the Department of Water and Power.
And if just give me a sense. I know you had that fantastic chart with the 3 different bars of sort of where we are, if we sort of went and did a good job, or if we were very aggressive. How much water on an annual basis relative to the city's need are we talking about here, the potential?
Sure. Right now we capture on average, about 27,000 acre-feet of stormwater every year. If you take a more conservative approach to stormwater capture over the next 20 years, we would double that amount. If you wanted to be more aggressive, we'd triple that amount. So we're looking, we're going to be putting into our 2015 Urban Water Management Plan some of these targets, and so we're looking to double or triple the total capture capacity that the city has in the next 20 years.
And, I mean, this is a regional solution, so as great of a job that DWP is doing, the County of Los Angeles has been a tremendous partner. Can you help me understand sort of what the collaboration looks like, has been and goes forward with our partners like the great County of Los Angeles?
Yeah, the LA County and us have a very long history of partnering. They've been operating the 5 spreading basins in the San Fernando Valley for many, many years. What, about 50 years?
Since
1932, the partnership started. They also own and operate Pocoyma Dam and Tonga Dam, which feed the 5 large spreading basins in the San Fernando Valley. And that system that the county operates and we partner with them on is the primary centralized stormwater capture system that the city has. So that's probably our most important partnership on stormwater capture, is our partnership with the city on that system.
Very good. County, would you like to add anything on your partnership with the City of Los Angeles?
Well, we appreciate the contributions with the city. We've partnered on other studies earlier on the Tahunga watershed study with Hansen. A lot of projects that we've had really couldn't have been done without the city's help. Although there are spreading grounds, the city really has benefited and provided a lot of help to get us to get financing, support us through grants and your own funds to actually get these projects going. Some of them are very expensive, large projects, and it's very hard for one agency to handle such large amounts of projects.
Very good. Mr. Blumenfield.
And you talk about the partnerships. I assume, and I guess I'll ask this question, we're still going after the federal partnerships. I know in the Hansen Dam spreading grounds, a couple of them, we've had a lot of federal money. I was very involved with that in the 90s, working for Howard Berman. I think we probably earmarked about $3 or $4 million to those spreading grounds over the course of about 7 different energy and water appropriations bills. I don't know if that type of partnership is still going on, if you're pursuing additional federal funds, or how that's going. But I know that could leverage I know it's leveraged a lot of money in the past. Are we still pursuing that in terms of leveraging federal partner for this,
Yes,
particularly the Army Corps?
Yes, we are. We did receive funding through Bureau of Reclamation as far as the funding was. I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the Bureau of Reclamation funded the study for the study that was being done for the region by the Watershed Council for Help. Watershed Council. So that was the initial study that was done and funded by the federal government, and we're also in negotiations with Army Corps to enhance the Hansen Dam as far as revisiting the study that they completed back in 1999. So yes, we are seeking federal help and federal partnership for the major facilities and studies. And also the Bureau of Reclamation is funding a portion of study that the county is leading on the LA Water Conservation Study, LA Basin Water Conservation Study. So there are various partnerships amongst various agencies within the greater Los Angeles is taking place right now that we are sharing information and exchanging information.
I guess I would just urge not to leave that. I've seen the money fall from that one side. I urge that rock not to be left unturned, especially with the next year's or the WRDA bill that'll come up in a couple of years, and just the annual Army Corps budget.
Yeah, we do have a dedicated group that does grant funding, and we look for all the opportunities we can, both at the federal and the state level, to get that grant funding. And as Ken was saying, a lot of these projects, you really do need to find partners and other funding to make the project go. So we're very aggressive in getting grant funding from all sources.
No, I was surprised looking at the presentation. Different topic was about the on-site was the least effective per dollar, right, on your list, which surprised me because that's usually what we talk about with constituents and everything else, whether it's the rain barrels or would that also on-site, does that include like porous concrete for sidewalks?
Right, it does.
Because I get a lot of mixed reviews on that. I've always been a fan of that, but I don't know how it stacks up in terms of the pricing. And how exactly you price it out. If we're fixing a sidewalk anyway, there's already a price, it's more about the marginal cost of the additional cost for a porous sidewalk and how you rate that on your acre foot. Is there a number for those kinds of things, for rain barrels, for porous sidewalks? And
One of the areas we look at as far as the best management practices, BMPs for various sites, and for various sites, we apply various means as far as the improvement of the site, as far as capturing stormwater, especially in the areas where there are no storm drain system. One of the best BMPs that we found out is the dry well, capturing the stormwater, putting it through a dry well system, and it's like a two-well system as far as the kind of improving the quality before infiltration. So that's one of the things we looked at. We looked at the bioswales, we looked at the porous pavement. So there are different BMPs we look at and select per project. The per project location is specific.
But to get to your point on as far as like incremental cost, I mean, that's really the key to a lot of these distributed projects is us funding a project that's already going to be done, say a Green Streets project. We would fund, say, an infiltration swale or some sort of a feature that would capture water and get into the ground that's part of an existing project, like a dry well system that we're doing. Those may not require a whole lot of money. If the department had to do the entire project to build that stormwater capture feature, that would be different. But just adding dollars on an incremental basis to add a stormwater capture feature to a project that's already going to move forward, those can be quite economical. And
how does that work? I mean, for sidewalk repair, let's say you're working on street service is going to pay for a pavement sidewalk, and they're looking at it, and their cost-benefit analysis does not justify using the slightly more expensive porous concrete. Mm-hmm. But the marginal cost may certainly be justified as a stormwater technique. Right. But how do you get into their cost-benefit as well, saying, hey, we can bump you the extra, dollar per square foot or whatever, I'm making up numbers, but how do you do that?
Well, we do work with the Bureau of Street Services and other city departments who are doing just that. In fact, one big piece of the Stormwater Capture Master Plan is the city's Green Streets project. And that program, we expect to do exactly what you said, on a lot of those green streets, which is to add dollars to green street projects, to add these type of features to them. And that's going to be a big piece of the plan.
Mr. Blumenfield, another way is, the motion and you supported and hopefully ordinance that's being drafted that looks at the public right of way, that anytime there's water, the analysis has to be done, and there's a punch list, and the punch list will reference the Stormwater Master Plan as well, so that it has to be considered when they're doing the cost benefit, and that's the green, I never remember the
Green Streets.
What was it called, Christine? The Green Street, Sustainable Street. So that punch list, once it becomes an ordinance, will make it so that every dollar that's invested in the public right of way has to pass through these filters, so we don't miss any additional opportunities, which is why this Stormwater Master Plan is so exciting, because it's finally a layer that we can add to our investment for the taxpayer.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have needed a stormwater capture master plan for so long. I think this is so exciting, the kind of thing the media just doesn't cover, but the impacts are enormous. So thank you for your presentation today. And in terms of, it's really up to us as policymakers now to synthesize ideas and do what we can to identify projects, funding, et cetera. A couple of comments I have more than anything else, and feel free to weigh in if you want to, but as the presentation is being given, I'm thinking of Los Angeles Basin, the enormous river watershed, LA River watershed, and how since the river was channelized back in the 30s through the 50s pretty much, how the city of Los Angeles became one of the most concretized cities in the United States, and how I've heard different things, but that we are one of the most paved over cities in the world, and how these little Green Street projects that we're doing here and there, and we're working on, tearing up medians and planting them, and planting the urban forest, and all of these little one-off projects that we're doing across the city, how that adds to or how that helps prevent all of that water during a storm event, more water than ever, now just goes right into the ocean because it goes into the flood control channel, the river. And I'm terribly interested in metrics at some point on how we can sort of whittle down the amount of water we waste when we have these rain events. And I know that this will inform us, I think, in ways that we didn't imagine. And I also think we have a golden opportunity with this Willits settlement for over the next few decades to pioneer new uses over our public rights-of-way in terms of sidewalk and our just how we take a look at the rights-of-way and getting more pavement off of the ground and how that could help. And then lastly, again, for me, it kind of comes down to the river quite often. The LA River, and we're looking at the Enhanced Increment Financing District and how that could actually create a revenue stream, and how this capture master plan could inform that entire process. I think the implications for that are very exciting, and we're going to be starting that process this month in terms of what kind of shape that will take, and we're to go out into the community and get the feedback and all that. So I suppose more than anything else, I just want to thank you. This is just terrific and gives us so much that we can work on, and it offers so much, I think, promise for what we want to accomplish in terms of sustainability. And I can't wait to get started on some of these ideas. So thank you.
Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd echo everything that Mr. O'Farrell just said, perhaps with a little bit less of a focus on the river, but certainly this is a dramatic step. One of the things I think is obvious is we can't just do this with the big projects that we've tried to do in the past, but we also need to make a lot of small-scale changes in rainwater capture especially. We talked about a couple of the projects that are being done, but what are we looking at doing in terms of distributed residential stormwater in the near future and in the very near future? Because we're looking at an El Nino that some people are talking about as Godzilla or Noah, Now, of course, I remember Carmageddon and bicycling up there thinking I couldn't get past all the cars and hearing a few crickets and seeing a couple of homeless people. So it could easily be nothing also. But in case it is, do we have plans in the next few months? Yeah, well, maybe. A lot of scientists think it may never happen either. If it does happen, do we have any plans in the next few months to dramatically increase our stormwater capture so that we actually can take advantage of this beyond just getting flooded out?
Yes, we do, and we've done it in the past, too. I mentioned that in a normal average rainfall year, we capture about 27,000 acre-feet of stormwater, and we infiltrate it into the ground. But there have been really wet years where we, with our partnership with LA County and just controlling their operations and metering the water out of the dams into the spreading basins, we've gotten close to 80,000 to 90,000 acre-feet of stormwater capture in those really wet years. So if this turns out to be one of those really wet years, we're planning on doing everything we can to replicate the type of that type of capture that we've done in the past as well. So
how much will that help us in terms of paying down our huge drought debt?
Well, 100,000 acre feet is not insignificant if you can capture it and get it into the ground. We're a long way away from getting out of this drought. It's taken 4 years to get ourselves into this position, so we'd need a string of fairly wet years. So if we have a really wet year, that'll be a good step in the right direction, but I think it's going to take more than one wet year to really get out of the drought.
Are we looking at anything like increasing our rain barrel distribution and other things that we could do on a small but very quick scale to
yeah, right now, that's a good point. I mean, right now, a homeowner, and it's not commonly known, but a homeowner can get up to 4 rain barrels and get on their property and get $100 for each installation. Now, the Department of Water and Power provides $25 toward each of those rain barrels, but our partners, the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, provides $75 for each of those rain barrels. So that's one thing that homeowners can do right now and install. We've been advocating for a while now through Metropolitan to try to get a regional incentive going for cistern installation on property. We're continuing to work with that, and rain gardens as well. So there are things that we're doing. We've also had a lot of discussions that are ongoing about a kind of a watershed management approach to turf removal. We haven't made any decisions about that yet, but it's something that's being discussed now.
And that's something I've been trying to push both at the DWP level and the MWBT level. I think before it sort of caught us in a way unawares because we realized, well, the first step is we have to rip out all this turf. But I think there were so many requests and so much money poured into it that we kind of realized, hey, we're completely transforming the landscape, so we could do more than just rip out turf. So I'm glad to hear that that's still moving forward. I'd add my voice to what was discussed about trying to make multiple uses out of the same action. So obviously, sidewalks and streets, we're talking about, again, completely transforming our landscape. So rather than waiting for the first few years and realizing, oh my gosh, we're installing so much pavement, we could be doing this differently. And also there are plans for upcoming park spawns and other things. So hopefully there's a rainwater capture element to everything that we do that's significant in the city. And lastly, it seems like there could be a closer integration within DWP between conservation and watershed efforts. And I don't know if that's happening, and if not, how can we help make that happen?
Well, the Watershed Management Group and the Conservation Group both report to me, so if there's a problem there, I'm responsible. But so far, they would seem to work pretty well together.
So do you think they're doing that already?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Very good. We've got a couple of public speakers. Andy Lipkis, come on up. Dr. Tom Williams and Mr. Spindler. Welcome, Mr. Lipkis.
Thank you. Representing tree people, We have had the honor of working with DWP as a pro bono consultant, helping arrange the plan and then serve as a consultant, also help facilitate a lot of community input and stakeholder engagement in this process. This exemplifies the new day of collaboration, working hand in glove like with the other big watershed management program in LA, One Water. And the opportunities to fund and co-fund is the bulk of the program, as they described. I want to congratulate your comment on the economic development side of this, which is huge, the jobs. This is about investing dollars in our people rather than in energy and pumping water over. Climate resilience is another huge, huge piece of this. The ability to reduce heat, prevent more flooding, and supply our long-term water. Key point,
you can finish your thoughts.
Key point is this can be radically accelerated. They gave you aggressive and a conservative plan, but as you witnessed in Australia, during the depth of their drought, right where we are here, they put the accelerator on and really went deep with distributing cisterns. So in some cities, up to 50% of the homes in the cities installed them because of good support. Two other points about the funding. Yes, on federal, and yes, on state. So LA, through our work in representing the three agencies, the county, DWP, and Sanitation, is a major part of the new federal Green Infrastructure Collaborative that's hoping to bring more money from more federal agencies to support integration. And a big investor getting ready because of the water bond is the State Energy Commission, because of all the water that's developed locally cuts down greenhouse gases involved in importing. And so the Energy Commission is actually developing a robust incentive program to help people buy cisterns, which can really drop the cost. So there's a whole lot of mix of resources that can come here when everybody collaborates, and the spirit of collaboration is now really growing, and we're pleased to be a part of that. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for serving as a consultant to the project, which is why we afforded you some additional time.
Thank you.
Very good. Colleagues, Mr. Williams?
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Tom Williams with the Sierra Club Water Committee also. Basically, I already have 400 gallons on my residence. I'm going to get another 400 gallons for this winter. However, the real issue is, how does the city deal with it? Did anyone mention Proposition O and what's going on with it? Because you have a funding mechanism for some of this, and it also includes citizens advisory committees. So I would highly recommend that you coordinate within the city as to all of the, quotes, One Water agencies and authorities. So there's that. Groundwater recharge is a great thing. Problem, in the San Fernando Valley, how good is the water? There's a lot of contamination both in the San Fernando Valley and in the area south of I-10. So we're quite concerned about putting a lot of water into a system that's already
Mr. Williams. Mr. Spindler.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm up to 2,500 gallons of storage myself, so I'm going to put another 10,000 gallons on my ranch. So anyway, good point about the poisoned water in the ground in the valley. You have to clean that up first before you add more junk to it. But they talk about funding partners. You're looking at the funding partner. I get it every other month, right in the ass, that bill from DWP, because you're the only agency that aggregates city trash fees, sewer fees into a utility bill. And if we don't pay all of it in an aggregated amount, you shut our water and power off. You get those additional fees at gunpoint, and you just keep raising the rates. $75 now every 60 days for trash fees on an 1,100 square foot home.
Mr. Prieto, we'll go ahead and note and file the report in as much as it was submitted for informational purposes only, and we'll go ahead and take items 6 and 7 together as they relate to similar matters. We'll have the department and our good friends from the County of Los Angeles join us again.
Certainly. Number 6 and 7 both relate to DWP report in response to motions. Fuentes Martinez on one end and the other one, Fuentes Bloomingville, relative to community outreach plans for residents Mission Hills and Arleta in connection with the Pocoyma spreading grounds, the Tahunga spreading grounds, and the reservoir projects.
We have about 4 slides we're going to start with, and Andy's going to make the presentation, then we'll collectively answer your questions.
I apologize. I need to restart the laptop here.
That's okay. We'll go, as soon as you get it up, we'll go ahead and get caught up, unless you need the slides.
No.
Okay. So as soon as it comes up, just let us know.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Meaning we don't have to wait for it.
Oh, yeah.
You can start your presentation and then.
I'm sorry. The following presentation was in response to item number 6 and 7, which was for the council motion in regards to community outreach for Pocoyma spreading grounds, Tahunga spreading grounds, and Pocoyma Reservoir. A written report was also submitted to the committee on July 31st, 2015. What I had in the presentation, I had a map and the location of each of these 3 projects in respect to one another. The first project, Tahunga Spreading Ground, is located in the city of Arleta next to Sun Valley, where the I-5 and 170 intersect. The second location, which is Pocoyma Spreading Ground, is in close vicinity. It is in the city of Arleta, and it crosses to Mission Hills, where the I-5 and 118 cross. Pocoyma Reservoir is located up north of Pocoyma and in the Angeles National Forest area. I had another slide that showed all the 3 projects and the benefits of each project. Essentially, the general benefit of these projects is to increase the capacity and increase the groundwater recharge for all of these projects. The Tahunga Spreading Ground is a project that we are going to deepen the basin and reconfigure the basins from 20 small basins into 10 larger spreading basins. We're going to construct 2 new intake. We're going to automate the facility, install telemetry system. We're going to do the landscaping along the perimeter of the facility, along the side of Sheldon and Arleta. And the project will increase the recharge capacity to 16,000 acre-feet a year, and that's equivalent of supplying 48,000 single-family homes.
That's the increase.
Increase.
Right. So
yeah.
How much are we getting out of it now?
We're getting close to 8,000, so we're doubling that amount.
Got it.
The project will also restore pumping capacity and health to the San Fernando Basin, which is one of our most important groundwater basin in the city. The following project, which is the Pocoyma Spreading Improvement Project, the project site is about 169 acres, and we are improving, similarly to Tahunga, we are improving the intake and the gates and deepening the basins. Thank you. And we are reconfiguring the basins from existing 12 basins, smaller basins, into 6 larger basins. Essentially, we're widening the basins and deepening the basins by average of 10 feet. And that would help us to increase the storage of stormwater and also recharge of the stormwater by doing this reconstruction. And we are also taking the clay lens out of these spreading ground by making the soils more permeable by doing that. We're also developing passive recreational and native habitat improvement to the facility. And again, this improvement is going to increase the recharge capacity to 8,800 acre-feet a year, an increase of 2,000 acre-feet a year. And again, there are other improvements. It's going to be flood protection and water quality improvements to the facility. And at the end of the reconstruction of the basin, we will create a 6.5 acre of open space and future passive recreational improvements for the community to enjoy. The third project you see on the right-hand side is Pocoyma Reservoir, that we are going to be removing 3 million cubic yards of sediments. These are the sediments that have been accumulated behind the dam over years because of various fires. So by removing those sediments, we are restoring the capacity of the dam to the original capacity of 4,700 acre-feet. In other words, we are adding another 2,000 acre-feet to the capacity of the reservoir. We are improving flood control and safety of the dam, and also the current status of the project is there is an environmental analysis being conducted, and that's in accordance with the CEQA. And the county issued notice of preparation back in February of this year, and they received comments in April of this year that they are analyzing the best alternative as far as removing the sediments from that project. This next slide shows the construction schedule for these three projects. That for the two spreading grounds, the duration of the construction is almost less than 2 years. But however, for the Pocoyma Reservoir is longer, is almost 5 years, and that's due to the logistics as far as how we need to remove the sediments from the reservoir through a conveyor system and trucking and all that. That kind of concludes the presentation on these three facilities. We would be happy to answer any questions regarding the outreach or any.
Mr. Nickneff, can you take us back to the initial slide where you can see the system?
Sure.
Yeah, and just help walk us through that, because I think a lot of folks hear about these assets, but I don't think they get a chance to really sort of see how that is that they sort of work into a system. And it's going to be networked largely now,
Exactly.
whereas before it wasn't, which is going to be a tremendous opportunity for us, correct?
Correct. As Mr. Pettijohn explained earlier, we have been or the county in partnership with us, they have been operating these facilities. There are essentially 5 spreading basins or 4 spreading grounds and 1 spreading basin in the city of Los Angeles that the county has been operating since 1930s. And the Department of Water and Power only owns one of those facilities, which is Tahunga Spreading Grounds. However, it's being operated by the county flood control district under an agreement we have that goes back to 1950s. Essentially, the way the system works, we have 2 big reservoirs or 2 big dams. One is Pocoyma Dam, another one is Tahunga Dam. Each one of them have a capacity of 6,000 acre-feet. And again, those sediments have been reducing those capacities. That's why we want to clean them up. So let's look at, for example, the big Tahunga Dam. The big Tahunga Dam, the water is released through the Tahunga Wash, and it goes through the Little Tahunga Wash, then it goes to Hanson Dam. Hanson Dam is being operated by Army Corps, and they have a strict flood control operation or guidelines that they operate the dam with the consideration that we want to capture that stormwater and spread it. There are essentially two spreading grounds after Tahunga Dam, which is the Tahunga Wash. The first spreading ground is the Hanson Dam that you saw the example, that we reconstructed that Hanson spreading grounds like 2 years ago, and it's been operating to the fullest capacity. And the next spreading ground downstream is Tahunga Spreading Ground, which we are going through the construction right now. And the construction, as you saw the schedule, is going to start soon in a matter of 3 to 4 months. The other system we have is Pocoyma Reservoir. Pocoyma Reservoir, again, the capacity is 6,000 acre-feet. County Flood Control District captures that water and releases that water strategically through a channel that goes first to Lopez Spreading Ground. Lopez Spreading Ground is being operated by Army Corps. However, the capture downstream of that goes to Pocoyma Spreading Ground, which we are proposing to reconstruct, and that's being owned and operated by the County Flood Control District. There is also a channel that the excess flow from Pocoyma Spreading Grounds goes through Pocoyma Channel, and kind of meets the Tahunga Channel. At the confluence of Tahunga Channel and the Pocoyma Channel, we are proposing under the Tahunga Spreading Ground reconstruction to introduce a new intake that is going to have a capacity of 450 CFS, almost doubling the intake capacity to Tahunga. So the excess water from Pocoyma Spreading Ground is going to be captured at the Tahunga Spreading Ground before it goes to the LA River and eventually into the ocean. That's in a nutshell, unless Ken wants to add.
I just say that the Lopez Spring Grounds is actually ours. The Lopez Flood Control Basin, which is downstream, is the Army Corps.
So, colleagues, as you can see, well, one, it's all in the heart of Council District 7, so I've got your water. But the really exciting part about all of this for me is sort of the network that we're developing and building upon the existing sort of assets, and obviously the coordination between the Army Corps and the county and the city of Los Angeles is incredibly important. But there was an earlier comment about the contamination of the San Fernando Basin. We're going to begin making deposits into this, and when we are fortunate enough to get the funds from Prop 1 or anything else to be able to remediate that, we'll do that with the extraction. But in the meantime, we have a lot that's going to be working for us in short order. I've spoken at length with you all about outreach. I won't belabor the points. I'm satisfied with what you're doing. I don't know, Mr. Vice Chair, if you have any questions. Mr. Koretz?
Just a quick one. I'm not completely up on all the geography. Does any of this connect to the current badly polluted aquifer, or are these all completely clean areas that are separate from it?
Well, they do recharge the San Fernando Basin. The San Fernando Basin is a contaminated basin. We do have facilities, however, one in particular is the Tahunga well field that is already fitted with activated carbon filters which clean out the pollutants as they come out of the ground before they enter the water system. So there are some treatment facilities already in place. We do have plans to build additional treatment facilities between now and, say, 2022 to clean up the basin. So you're right, it is a contaminated basin, but we're cleaning some of it up now. We've got about half of our existing wells out of service because of the contamination, but we still have half of them in service, and we've got plans to bring them all back online.
So which of these pieces aren't contaminated, or are any of them contaminated that are in use?
Well, you almost have to assume that the water in the groundwater basin is going to experience some contamination. But the plan is to treat that water as it comes out of the ground. So you can either treat it through a wellhead treatment, some of which we're doing, or you can have a large centralized treatment facility. And that is kind of the master plan for cleaning up the San Fernando Basin, is to build a large centralized treatment facility at our North Hollywood pump station. That would be about a $600 million project. The plan is to have that project online by about 2021, 2022.
And I know the MWD set aside $20 million to start helping us clean. Have we gotten through that process yet, or are we still duking it out with our union brothers?
We're still working through that process. However, we do believe that a lot of our cleanup projects will qualify for metropolitan subsidies through their local projects program. And so we're planning on applying for that money when these projects move forward.
Do we have any idea when the other part will start up? When we get through the process dealing with our local unions and can start that up?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know.
So no end closely in sight yet, I take it?
Not that I can see.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Colleagues, we do have speaker cards on this. We took the items together, so we'll go ahead and give 1 minute apiece to the speakers. Herman, Dr. Tom Williams, and Wayne.
Dr. Tom Williams, I'll cover both 6 and 7 together. Where was the outreach in this? This is kind of typical. Theoretically, it was supposed to be about community outreach plan. Did we see a community outreach plan? Nothing about neighborhood councils, nothing about meetings, nothing about outreach. So I'm somewhat confused. I enjoy watching Tahunga and other places, but it's a question as to where's the outreach plan. But this is fairly typical of Caltrans, DWP, California High-Speed Rail, all of which have real problems in the Pocoyma area. And there's I say communities organizing there to oppose a lot of things. So I'm quite concerned about this as an example of DWP's community outreach. Thank you.
Mr. Nignaff, if you couldn't come up for a second and just give us a very, very brief sense of how many meetings, outreach that we've done. I know that the county's partnered with you, but if we can do that.
We have had various meetings with our partner, LA County Flood Control District. We have held various community meetings in the neighborhoods that are directly involved with those two projects. I have a list and the dates of various neighborhoods that I can provide you to that. There is also a website for both projects that are posted on LA County Flood Control District site and LA DWP site that provides information as far as who to contact and when the public or community meetings can take place. And as soon as before the construction starts, we will have a contact person, we will have a meeting date as far as the project location, and public will be informed.
Very good. I'm sorry, your time is up, sir. Thank you very much.
He gets a chance to rebut it.
Mr. Herman.
You should get one more minute.
You should have one more extra minute to speak because of the transparency issue here. You know, you keep fucking with people's rights to be heard. Stop it, chipmunk. You have to learn to listen to people. All they're trying to do is make their communities better. And the doctor here is well aware of everything that's going on, and you don't want to give him the opportunity of 2 fucking minutes? That's discriminatory. An elderly man spends his whole day to come here and defend his community, and you can only give him 1 fucking minute. I'm very upset, can you tell? But it's because I'm in Nuri mode. Nuri sets me off like this because, again, this is talking about the motion by you, Mr. Chipmunk Fuentes. Your name is on the paper, and it says relative to a community outreach plan. If the gentleman who's 50 years older than me and senior over me knows better to say that you didn't give enough time to be heard on this issue, then extend it. I demand a motion, hold this item. I disagree with it, and we consider more time on this idea.
Mr. Spindler.
Yes, thank you for giving me 30 seconds for each of the items. It's such a large amount of time to cover 2 minutes. Thank you so much. I could do this in 10 seconds, but okay, I'll try to use my time. First of all, let's talk about the animals. Let's talk about chipmunks. Like Felipe Fuentes is a chipmunk, and there's other chipmunks and animals in the area there.
Before us today,
yes,
items 6 and 7
I know, well, you see,
deal with the Pocoyma Spreading Grounds
you see
project.
The only thing
grounds project,
you're filibustering, and
you can go ahead and limit.
You're using my time, and you're filibustering because you know that I'm right, and you're using the tactic lawyers. They taught you how to lie like that in law school. That's why you got your job. So you didn't do it. You fucked the community. No public input.
So the item, colleagues, is now before us. We're going to note and file the report and request that the department, in collaboration with the County Flood Control District, report to the committee on the project status prior to the beginning of construction activities in the spring of 2016. That will be the order. That takes us, colleagues, to general public comment. We have cards from Tom Williams, Mr. Spindler, Antonia Ramirez, and Herman. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Cedillo.
Good afternoon. Dr. Tom Williams again. Basically, we need a very simple thing. That is a counter permit for 3 to 5 kilowatt solar panels that could be gathered from Board of Water and Power and from Building and Safety. Simple counter permit for a standardized 3 to 5 kilowatt solar panel times 200, times 400,000 residences, single-family dwellings. Because right now, it takes a huge amount just to get a simple panel on. There's also an element that DWP needs to come up with a more favorable feed-in tariff for single-family dwelling panels. This is very simple. They've been looking at it for over 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Spindler.
Yes, it's been a good meeting. I noticed that big fat Marcy Edwards was here today. She snuck in and snuck out. She's a lady that supposedly runs the DWP. She's known as a puppet over there at the other building. But I got my DWP bill. I cut my water usage 89% to 1 HCF. 1. And my electric was cut 34% because I turned my air conditioner off and I sweat. So I barely shower and I sweat, I smell like shit, and I did that so I could give you more water and power so all the rich Jews could use it. But they charged me $75 for trash fees, so my bill was 39% electric and water, and 64% of it went to trash fees and sewer fees. So you're fucking me. Can you explain that?
Ms. Ramirez.
Our American environment has been adversely affected by the racist, hate-mongering wetbacks and evil Chango Latino gangbangers from neighborhoods, communities,
Ms.
and
Ramirez,
cities.
if you could limit your comments to the jurisdiction
And
of the
that's
committee.
exactly where I'm going.
the
Therefore,
Energy Environment Committee. So
I am voting for Donald Trump, who has the balls and the spit.
Mr. Ramirez, this has nothing to do with Mr.
This has
Trump.
everything to do with the leadership that is going
Mr.
to
Herman,
represent
I warn you,
these individuals.
Mr. Ramirez, you have to limit your comments to, don't stop her clock. If this is how she wants to spend her time, we'll go ahead and do that. Mr. Ramirez.
And this is exactly what I mean. We do not get the right to speak freely. We have to have your words inputted in our mouths. Again, this is exactly what I mean. You and Gil Cedillo, Jose Huizar, are nothing more than a bunch of butt kissers. Look at me. I'm not the butt kisser. I come in here to speak freely with my own mind, and I'm out there. I don't swivel in my chair all day long like you do. I'm actually out there. I don't speak out of my ass like you do. So there's a difference. Okay? How I speak and how I portray is my business. It's between me and my God, but I want to make sure the people know what's going on. You want to make it all fine and dandy. It is not fine and dandy.
Mr. Herman.
Is this considered an open meeting law under the Ralph M. Brown Act? Because you from Sacramento apparently don't know shit about the Brown Act.
Mr. Herman, the committee is the Energy and Environment Committee.
well,
so if you have
I'm
public comment
trying to show
that
you
you'd like
how
to
I
speak to
exercise my
with respect
energy.
to the Energy and Environment Committee, I would ask you to
Chipmunks should be burned
limit
so
your
they can smell like
conversation to
energy.
those items that are
You can
not on the
recycle
agenda
chipmunk
today but
fur as
pertain to
energy.
the Energy and Environment Committee.
Will you stop disrupting me? May I go forward now? Once again, Mr. What's your name? Felipe. Make sure to understand this. That energy is very important because us kids need it for our future. And if you don't circulate the best quality of understanding what the fuck energy does for everyone, we're never going to get to the next moon. Get it? Get off your high trip, powerhead.
Very good, colleagues. That brings us to the conclusion of the Energy and Environment Committee. We're adjourned.